What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Adobe Live. I am here with Lizzie Peirce. I got a lower third for us.
Hello.
Boom. There it is. Hello, hello. This is day 2 of photo editing. We're going to be jumping back into Lightroom. Going to be switching it over to Photoshop to add some color to images. And we're going to get to Lizzie's intro in just a sec. But before we do all that, again, got to go over those housekeeping items. So first of all, if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and join us over at behance.net. That's where we're going to be looking at the chat. That's where we're all engaging with each other. So go ahead and join us over there. And then also, let's have a look at the schedule because we are one of many shows today. So let's have a look at that. Cool. You are live with us right now for the 9:30 segment. Coming up after us is the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hochrattle. Then at noon, we have some branding and identity design with Molly Russell, followed by the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge with Jesse, then a draw along with Kyle T. Webster, and then of course the design off with Voodoo Val. Awesome. All right, Lizzie, well, enough about this intro. Tell us who you are, what you do, and who you are.
Yeah, I'm Lizzie, and I'm a video producer, content creator from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So we kind of got started, and I say we because my video production company that I co-run is half me and half my fiance, Chris House, and you guys may be familiar with him as well. So we started out doing a lot of corporate video, working with different brands, and then we moved into more travel-based video and photography. And then inevitably moved into YouTube because it was very tempting to be able to make whatever we want on this platform and share some of our knowledge and help you guys start your own creative businesses and learn something new, you know? So that is what brings me here today. So
awesome.
Yeah,
so speaking of YouTube, I want to give some love to Lizzie's social links. So this is her YouTube right here. And she's got a very, very cool 60-second video of who she is. So we watched that yesterday, but for the people that are new today, we're going to go ahead and watch it again because I think this is a great video, kind of giving a recap of who Lizzie is, her little background of her work, and how she got to where she is today. So let's have a look at this real quick.
Who am I in 60 seconds? I'll show you. I'm Lizzie, a video producer, photographer, and professional salt and vinegar chip eater. Influencer. I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where all the nice people live.
Sorry that you're sorry. Well, I'm sorry that you're sorry about me being sorry.
When I graduated university and started looking for work, over and over, people were telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I was too pretty to be smart. Backhanded compliment, am I right? But people who doubt me just fuel my fire. So I got a job, learned the ropes, quit that job, almost threw up, and started a production company, and for 2 years did awesome work, but I wanted more. So I started uploading my own videos online. Being a creator isn't about followers or money. It's about making art that inspires people. It's about encouraging people to start their own creative business. It's about being a female in a male-dominated field and putting myself out there so that people, especially young women, can point at me through a screen and say, I can do it because she is doing it. No one else's opinion of you defines you. That's why I'm a creator.
Love it. Such great videos, such high energy.
Thanks.
Cool. So one more thing to shout out. Here's Lizzie Peirce Instagram. Go ahead and give her a follow. And I see a new image. I think this is the one we edited live yesterday.
That was yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, check that out. It came out so good. Cool. All right, well, enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into some video editing. So I'm going to switch to your screen, Lizzie. And while I do that, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the chat. So I just want to give some love to the chat. We got Sam Peterson, we got Cornell, we got Paul, we got Ferry, we got Nor, Wade, we have Georgie, Jack, Biola, Marsha. Yes, welcome everybody. Again, as yesterday, This is a safe space. Go ahead and ask us any questions. This is 2 hours that you have with Lizzie to ask anything that you want, whether it's photo related, photo compositing related. So go ahead and ask your questions, engage with us. And as always, let us know where you're tuning in from. So I'm here right now in not so sunny San Francisco. It did clear up yesterday, so maybe we'll get a little bit of sunshine. And Lizzie, where are you streaming from?
I'm streaming from Toronto, from our office. I've kicked everyone out, so it's just me here, and it's a beautiful sunny day outside, but notice I'm wearing a hoodie because inside our office, it is so cold. They just blast the air conditioning.
Awesome. All right, chat, just let us know where you're coming in from, and
Yeah.
let's get into some photo editing.
Yeah, let's do it. So we are going to be doing a mix of different things today. So we're going to start off with, I'll edit another one of my travel photos. And then we actually have a few photos that you guys submitted that I'm going to edit. And then a little later on, we're going to do a little bit of skin retouching, a little bit of just general basic retouching in Photoshop. So we'll move on to some portraits kind of like that and just show you some of the tweaks I do to just make a great photo just that little bit more perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, and as Lizzie said, we asked you to submit some photos so Lizzie can edit them live. And we got quite a few submissions, so we went ahead and picked some of those photographs in their raw form. And Lizzie's going to edit them live a little bit later.
Yes.
So stick around for that.
Exactly. So, sorry about that. So let's start with, this is a pretty classic travel photo, I would say. You know, you got your subject looking out into the beautiful vista. And in this case, the subject is me. This is actually, if you want to call it a self-portrait or a selfie, whatever, I had this set up on my tripod, and what you can't see is my phone tucked over beside me, setting off the camera. So yeah, and I just flipped my hair around to get that nice little bit of movement in the frame.
Nice.
So if you don't have anyone with you, don't let that stop you guys. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with this. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll, if you weren't here yesterday, one of my first steps is just kind of checking my white balance to make sure it was set correctly. Sometimes funky things happen, especially when you're on the go, but I am happy with how this looks. And again, I mentioned this yesterday, but for anyone who isn't here, my usual process is I'll go through one of my presets just for, the sake of speed. When you've got you're coming back from a trip, you have lots of photos to edit. And you want to make sure you come out with a lot of great finished photos. I'll usually scan through my presets and see what looks good. But for now, normally, I mentioned yesterday, this is one of my favorite presets, the Classic Boost Vintage Black. And normally I would kind of go with that and maybe tweak it up a little bit. But for today, let's start from the ground up.
Awesome.
So the first place I'm going to start is probably in the tone curve. And so again, it's important kind of to look at this, the graph here, and see where a lot of your, where most of your image sits in terms of the light. That's not really something I talked about too much yesterday, but you can see there are a lot of highlights, but it's a pretty evenly exposed photo. So I know that this is going to make quite a difference to the whole look of the photo and the highlights in the image.
Awesome. And while you're starting us off, I'm going to call out some of the places that people are tuning in from. So we have Barry from Indonesia. We have Rob Zilla from Zilla HQ, of course. We have Pamela from Lexington, South Carolina. Brenda from Kansas. Steve from New Zealand. Robert from Sweden. We have Rodney from New Hampshire. Kyle from Seattle. And then we have Megan from Edmonton, Alberta. Ooh, I've been to Edmonton. I believe that's where Banff is. Is that in the Edmonton province? No, that's Calgary.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes.
Well, I recognize one name. Rodney is someone who actually submitted a photo for us to edit today. So Rodney, I do have one of your photos.
Lopez? Yeah, so Rodney, that was you. Then we do have one of your
from
photos
New Hampshire.
if you submitted yesterday. So stick around, my friend. And then we have a quick question from Jay. Where do you get your inspiration to create videos?
That is a great question. And actually, a lot of people were bringing that up especially during COVID, because everyone's going, when you can't go out, where does your inspiration come from? How do you get new ideas? I think a lot of my inspiration comes from my time when I get to sit and reflect on, and in terms of videos, sit and reflect on how I feel or how something significant in my life made me feel. What happened? What did that look like? Is it a story that, what's the story there? Is it a story that people can relate to and something I'd be interested in telling? I think in a visual sense, when I watch another video that's really powerful, or I see something really beautiful, or I notice like even a small detail in the environment, that can spark a whole, the ball rolling on a new idea. But I think just being hyper aware of and turning your thoughts inwards and always reflecting on how it sounds kind of airy-fairy, but how you feel in a certain situation, or what your story is, and whether people can relate to it, and whether it's something that's worth sharing and you think would actually make a difference for other people, then that's when I get really inspired to tell that kind of story. So it can come from literally anywhere, watching something online to just in the shower or sitting and looking at out in the distance, or it could be something really horrible that happened to me, and just my whole process of going through it is what ended up sparking an idea to make something. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that answer. So I see with the curves that you were doing, Lizzie, what were the adjustments that you made on that curve?
Yeah.
And why did you select those specific points?
I usually start by making an S curve, but as you can see, this is kind of not as much of an S, a little bit, but not really. So I brought down the highlights a little bit just because I wanted to flatten and soften them out a little bit and see more of the detail in the sky. And I like bringing down this area of the shadows because it helps create contrast, but then bringing up the blacks again has a nice lifted, soft look to the blacks. I'm not a huge fan of crushed blacks, which is if you brought them kind of down this way in the opposite direction. I just like a really soft looking image. That's how I would describe it. And right here, kind of in the mid-tones, I brought those up a little bit just to brighten. I'll show you where they were. Just to kind of brighten up this central area of the image. And just make it pop a little bit more. So overall, I'm happy with those, and then I might come up to this area over here and tweak a couple things.
Cool. Do you usually start with the levels adjustment first, the curves, and then you go into the global adjustments?
Yeah, I would say so. Why? It's just what works for my process.
Yeah.
That's just how I do it.
Right or wrong way to do things. It's just however you like to do it.
There is absolutely no right or wrong way to doing this. It's mainly just using, I think over time, you just figure out different ways to use the tools that you have. And those have different effects on your photo. But overall, yeah, you can literally do anything, any way that works for you to get the effect you're going for. I think one of the hardest parts too is just figuring out where you want to go with an image and what you want it to look like, especially when you're just starting out and you haven't even explored all of the different looks and how to achieve, a vintage look or a film look or a really dramatic moody photo or a bright, happy, sunny photo or, anything. So the more different varieties you create, the more you develop your own personal style and know how to get there.
Agreed. Yeah, you just got to get your hands dirty with the program, honestly. You just got to mess around with all the sliders, mess around with a bunch of different looks, and sure enough, you keep at it long enough, you're going to find a look that works for you and kind of start to build your own style.
Exactly.
We have some conversations in the chat about JPEG versus RAW. Cornell is asking, what's the data used for? As far as I know, you can use camera raw filter on JPEGs and RAWs. So what's the difference?
Between a RAW and a JPEG?
Yeah, well, it's a big one.
Essentially, if in a raw photo, you just have so much more information to be able to adjust the color, the highlights, the blacks, the shadows. there's just so much more information there that you can manipulate. And you have so much more control over that image. Whereas with the JPEG, you'll notice that things kind of start to break up as you really want to bring up the shadows or change a color. You'll start to notice little things going wrong there.
Yeah. The RAW just gives you that flexibility to really kind of get creative with those photos. With JPEGs, it's compressed and it has picture profiles baked in already. So once you start tweaking and editing, kind of like how Lizzie's been doing, it kind of starts to break down. You'll start to see compression artifacts. There's just not a lot of data in there to be able to manipulate the photo so much. And even cooler is, you know, if you underexpose the shot or overexpose it, a lot of times you can actually save that photo because you shot RAW. There's so much information there that you can drag those highlights all the way down. Sky isn't blown out. Same thing with the shadows. Now the cons of shooting RAW, I would say, is it takes up a lot more space than shooting JPEG. And I think that would have been an issue. With space used to be pretty expensive a couple years ago, but now space is so cheap to buy. I mean, you can just buy external hard drives or SSDs or just by the terabytes for an affordable price. So I'm a big fan of RAW. I mean, just if you have the space, which everybody should these days, just go ahead and shoot RAW. You'll be amazed at the things you can do with photos.
100%. It's always worth the extra money you'll end up spending on hard drives and storage and the time, because you'll be able to get better photos.
Yeah. Cool. So what are you doing now with the photo? Looks like we're in the HSL and color panel. Yeah.
So I originally started out playing with the orange hue and just getting that to a place where it's not too yellow, not too red, something true to what I feel the image should look like. Especially with my hair, sometimes in photos, it looks red, even though I'm blonde, because this is of me, I just don't want it to look that way. So I adjusted the hue a little bit. I brought down the saturation so it didn't look quite as orange. And then I brought up the luminance, which is also affecting this rock down here, but it just made both of those colors look a little bit creamier and less orange. Which is something that I'm a fan of. And then I kind of adjusted the blues a little bit, brought them a little bit more to the aqua side of things. I don't really want to saturate them because that's a bit much. I don't really want to, if I did anything, I might actually desaturate them because even this is the way the image is, it just looks almost unnatural how blue that lake is.
Oh yeah, I was gonna bring attention to that. I've been to Canada and backpacked.
Yeah,
I mean those lakes really do look like that. It is so bizarre. And people think you might be touching up saturation just for that color, and I'm telling you, that's how it looks. That's how the water looks up there in Canada. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the craziest part is, so we visited this lake twice on this trip. This was the second time. It's called Peyto Lake, and the first day we went, it had snowed very strangely in the spring. And so all of these trees were covered in snow. So we went literally one day and then the next day got two completely different kinds of photos there. Amazing. Just because of the weather. So we were so lucky. We were just going, how could we get so lucky? This is never going to happen again.
All right, so let's get these questions out of the way because they always get asked at some point. But why don't you let us know what you shot this picture with? What are you using? And then what are you actually editing on?
So this photo was shot with my Sony a7 III. It is my workhorse for both photo and video. And I think that's why it sold so well. And what I'm editing on right now is actually the HP NV15. So we're on a PC today, guys.
PC. We're doing some PC.
Yeah,
editing.
Very exciting. And one of the reasons I love having a PC, especially at the office, is my desktop is a PC as well. So when I'm going back and forth, I'm working in the same world. I'm working in the same ecosystem, which I really like. And it has actually a feature called Quick Drop. And so it's easy for me to send my finished photos to my phone too. So it's just like a totally frictionless process. It's one of my favorite words, frictionless.
Frictionless. That's a big one. Other operating systems have the ability to just kind of drag and drop assets. And that's great that this PC ecosystem has that. So HP Quick Draw will just do the same thing. Very, very convenient.
Totally. All right.
Let's see what the chat is saying. I think some people are asking if the iPhone can shoot RAW. Not off the bat, but here's a cool tip. If you fire up, I think it might be Lightroom Mobile. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is Lightroom Mobile. I believe you're able to take photos from the app, and there's actually a setting where you can shoot in a DNG format, which is kind of like a RAW. So it kind of takes this rawer image as opposed to the standard JPEGs that come from an iPhone. So that's a pretty cool tip that's allowed with, I think, the Lightroom app. Maybe one of the mods can fact
that is
check
cool
on that. Yeah. So, I mean, smartphone cameras have come a long way. And with each generation, I mean, they keep getting better and better. I mean, of course, you're not going to get the amount of pixels and that sensor coming from a smartphone, but for the casual shooter, it definitely gets the job done.
Yeah, for sure. I have a friend who has an iPhone photo printed off on her wall, poster size, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive quality.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're working with the graduated filter. Yes.
Yes. Am I the only one that calls it the gradient filter sometimes?
I almost
Let
said
us know
gradient,
in the comments.
but I think
It's graduated.
Graduated. I almost said gradient. That's why I was like, graduated.
Gradient just makes more sense.
Yeah.
Adobe, are you listening? Let's take a vote.
Graduated.
What do we
filter
think?
Or gradient. What do we think?
Graduated or gradient?
What did you use it for in the photo? Did you do it to bring some of those highlights down?
Yeah, so I sometimes like adding a little bit of depth to the sky, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And you can see that that's mainly just affecting the clouds up here. So I brought down the exposure just to add a little bit of a gradient in the sky, so it's not quite as blown out. And I also brought up the clarity just to see a little bit more texture in the clouds there, make them a little more visible.
And one thing I love doing, so before you go away from this panel, scroll down a little bit. Oh, let's select the
selected?
Yeah, while you have it selected. And there's a little on and off switch when you have that point selected, so you can actually see your change. You see that little button? So go down a little bit. Yeah,
this
right
here?
there.
Yep.
So that turns off and on the adjustment. So you can see right there, it looks pretty kind of blown out, but with that graduated filter, that sky looks a little more dramatic now. So that's a cool way to see the changes that those effects are doing.
Totally.
It's looking a lot better.
And all you're really trying to do is make it easier for your viewer, whoever's looking at the image, to draw their eye to the subject, which in this case would be me. So right now it looks like I'm darkening myself, but we're not going to leave it that way. I'm just so I can see what I'm doing. Also, if you hit O, you can see exactly what you're coloring.
So just by hitting O, you can see where those adjustments are taking place.
Exactly.
Looks like we have some people agreeing with you, Lizzie. They're saying, I call it the gradient filter all the time. That's what Maribel is saying.
Yes, Maribel.
Aki is asking, how is your computer screen calibrated for color accuracy? It's a great question.
So the great thing about this computer is that it is extremely color accurate. It is very true to your natural eye color and how you would see color. It's actually a 4K OLED screen. So the worst thing that could happen, is you're editing on one screen and then you print out your photo and it looks completely different. So that's one thing you can rely on with this, is that not only do you have a huge workspace because of the edge-to-edge screen, but you also have super accurate colors with this, and it's very sharp.
Yeah, I have this same laptop with me, and I can tell you that screen looks so good. That 4K screen inside of this laptop is super crisp and very, very vibrant. It's a great screen for the laptop. Let's see, Steve is giving us a pro tip for phones. Install Premiere Rush and use the cam software for videos. Same as Lightroom, you can get more out of your phone cam. Sweet. Good to know. Thanks for the pro tip, Steve. All right, looks like we added another graduated filter to the top.
I was going to. I think I'm at the point where I'm fiddling now. You know, when you just keep making adjustments to a photo and you're like, where am I going to cut myself off? Where does this end?
Yeah, we touched up on that a little bit yesterday. That could happen with photos, and I think at some point you just got to decide, is it done? Because nobody else is going to tell you where it's done. I think it's like up to you to decide whether it's done. But I'm the same way. I'll just finagle with photos, and you know, if you finagle with it enough, then you'll be like, this actually works great.
And sometimes, sometimes it's improvements, and then sometimes you just get so far from where you should
go
be.
down like a black hole.
Yeah,
Phyllis
exactly.
is asking, what is the name of the laptop again?
It is the HP Envy 15.
It's got the
4K
OLED screen.
Yeah, 4K OLED. And they actually designed this laptop specifically for creators, which I think is really cool.
That's awesome. We got a question from Rodney. He's asking, do you edit a photo differently for printing versus for a shot that is going on the gram?
Sometimes I would say so. Yeah, I definitely take that into consideration. And that's because when you're posting something to Instagram and you want people to notice it and perform well, it has to be not only, I think, of a certain caliber for your personal standards, but it has to have a lot of contrast, color. I mean, not necessarily super colorful, but it has to catch your eye. So oftentimes I find if I'm editing a photo that I know is going to probably live on Instagram, I'll make sure it's definitely super sharp. And sometimes I'll actually add a few adjustments within Instagram before I even post the photo. So I believe one of them is I'll add sharpness. And another one, I think we went through this yesterday, but I've already forgotten the name of it. I'll pull it up and show you guys.
Is that little magic wand thingy?
Yeah, it's the little magic wand at the top. So it is.
Switch to this bigger shot. Yeah.
There you go. So it's right. Come on. Focus, camera. You can do it.
You get the idea. It's
it's right up here.
Wand tool right above. There
right
it is.
there.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wand tool.
And I think it's called Lux. There we go. So
Lux. That's Lux. What it is. Yeah.
And I'll usually add no more than, it has a little slider at the bottom here, and I'll add no more than 20. And it just kind of, it's almost like clarity and contrast if they had a baby.
Clarity of contrast had a baby. You get
if clarity
Lux.
and contrast had a baby, you would get Lux. But obviously that's something I wouldn't necessarily add on a print. And especially if it's being blown up, then I may not be quite as dramatic with some of my edits, because you can see everything. You can see anything too major, any small mistakes, any small details if I'm printing it out. So sometimes I make a couple different versions of a photo. So I'm pretty happy with this. So here is a before and after for you guys. Subtle. I mean, this is one of those photos that actually already looks pretty good in camera.
Yeah, we touched up on this briefly yesterday. Yeah, sometimes you get a photo off the camera and the lighting and the conditions are already great. You know, don't think that every single photo you have to do crazy edits with. Sometimes they look great off the camera and you just have to do minimal adjustments.
And I think it depends on your style of photography, but some photographers I know get really upset when it's a sunny day because they want the mood, they want the clouds, they want the bad weather.
Mood is king.
I mean, mood is king. Don't get me wrong. That is probably what I would prefer, but it doesn't mean you still can't get a nice photo. So yeah, I would just work with what you got. You can definitely make super sunny days work for you. Even with portraits, you can work with it.
That's a great tip, Lizzie. When I was first starting out with photography, I was in the same camp. You know, I wanted those beautiful sunsets, pink, purple. I mean, the reality is you don't really get those. It's actually rare occasions that you get that beautiful sunset. And I would get a lot of sunny photos and I'd be like, these are unusable. But I told myself, you know what, let's just try and make this work. Maybe play with new compositions, do things you otherwise wouldn't do. And I think there's always something there to work with. You know, don't think that your photos are dependent on weather. Just look at it through a different lens and try stuff that's new. That's a great way to kind of get outside your bubble and try new types of photography. So,
100%. So we're now going to move into editing some of your photos.
Yeah, so this is a user submitted photograph. I believe it's by Rodney. Rodney, if you're in the chat and this is your photo, go ahead and let us know. But here Lizzie is editing this photo live when it was submitted from yesterday when we're asking people to submit photos for Lizzie to edit. So cool. Let's see what you do with it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to crop it a little bit because there is a little extra room on this side of the frame, and symmetry is very important in photography, and the more you do this, the more you can't unsee it. If you know what I mean. So I just used I'm trying to figure out what looks level because this wasn't taken straight on, so I might try a few different things. So this is called the straighten tool, but I like to call it the little ruler tool. That actually looks crooked. I think it looked better before. We may maybe we'll eyeball it a little bit.
Cool. So this is Rodney's photo. Rodney Lopez, thank you for submitting. He says, this is IRML Clock in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Nice. That's going to be my next question. Where was this photo taken? It looks like it's a CR2, so I believe it's a Canon. So what did you shoot this with, Rodney? Let us know. We'd like to geek out over camera and computer specs.
Mm-hmm. I think because of the perspective of the photo, this might be where we're going to end up here.
Mm-hmm.
This is always something you want to perfect in the beginning. Otherwise, it'll bug you throughout the edit. Shooting these buildings from close up from the ground is always a struggle.
Yeah.
It's always a little rough. So first thing I will do is, so here's a little tip for you guys. Sometimes I like to just see what Lightroom suggests for me in terms of the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, all that stuff. So I'll actually hold shift down and double click on exposure. And I had a feeling it was going to make some adjustments there. And then the highlights. Sometimes rather than me eyeballing it, it makes some great suggestions, you know? And it's important to be fast.
Yeah. Less is
especially
more
when these are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you got tons of photography, less is more. If you got some shortcuts, use them. These programs are great in kind of giving you a head start.
Absolutely.
So Rodney says he shot this with a Canon SL2. And he believes that's a kit lens with an 18 to 55 millimeters. Nice.
I remember I had a very similar kit lens, if not probably the same one actually, with my Canon T3i.
Yeah. You and I, we discovered we fell in the same camp. So
yeah,
it was also my first camera, the T3i, and I believe I had that same kit lens as well.
Yep, that's the one it was sold with, right?
Yeah, I believe the 18
one that comes with
is kind of the standard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good times with the T3i. I also had a 5D Mark III for a while.
Yeah, I'm still rocking mine. Thing is not light, but it is a tank.
It is not light, but it is a tank. But if you have like a 50 on it, it's pretty.
The Primes definitely cut some of that weight.
Yeah.
I'm usually hiking around with it with a 16 to 35, so not the lightest lens, but I tend to shoot pretty wide because I shoot a lot of landscape photography and just want to get as much as that landscape in my photos.
So I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go with this photo. Originally, I thought, oh, it would be fun if I just tried to make it look super moody. But now I'm like, I could also make it look kind of sunny and bright and happy. Which way do we want to go?
So many ways.
So many ways. Well, We'll go with the happy vibe. Let's go happy. So I'm just making a little bit of a graduated filter.
Graduated gradient. Tomato.
Graduated gradient. And brought up the exposure a little bit just to make it look like the sun's really pouring in on the on that clock.
Happy vibes.
Happy. But if you wanted to go moody, you could. Probably the first thing I would do is then like desaturate the photo a little bit, add more contrast, mood it up, add a vignette, you know. You can have so much fun with photos like these.
While we're doing this, Jack is asking, can you work the photo in Photoshop if you have to modify something and continue with the project in Lightroom?
Sure. I would say it's probably easier for you to do it after the fact. I would do if it's something small or I mean, it depends on the adjustment, but my workflow is I do my color and, you know, tone curves in Lightroom, and then I would bring it into Photoshop afterwards, no matter what it is. If I wanted to even like fill in trees or, you know, erase something from the ground, like a puddle I don't like, it's something I can't do in Lightroom, I would still probably go into Lightroom first and then Photoshop afterwards. But yeah, like you can, whatever your personal workflow is.
Sweet. Phyllis is saying, sunny, bright, and happy. Yes. That is looking happy and sunny. Especially with that graduated filter you added on the left to warm it up. That was a good touch.
Thank you. Can I just always have you guys here to compliment me while I edit?
Must be nice to work that way, just getting showered with compliments.
Yeah, it's nice. I can get on board with this life.
Agreed.
I like it.
It's looking good. Steve is asking, what uni did you graduate from?
I went to Ryerson University in Toronto. The program I was in they changed the name. It's now called the RTA School of Media, so you can look it up. It's more well known, I would say, for mainstream, or they're shifting their program a little bit, but mainly their bread and butter was television production and audio production, radio, sports, news, producers for television, that kind of thing. Inevitably, people ended up in the program interested in filmmaking, and then, of course, the internet became a thing, and jobs changed entirely. So now they have many more courses that cater to that. I missed a lot of them. I came a little too early, but yeah, so that's what I thought I was going to do, was stick in TV production, funnily enough.
A little bit of overlap there. It's media based, you know.
Media based.
Totally different than working with TV and broadcast studio.
Yeah.
I'm in the same camp. I think I like what we do instead of working in a studio all the time.
Yeah, I think I'm much happier in where I ended up. I just don't think I knew it was a job or thought of it as a job initially.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good.
We have a question asking what your YouTube channel is. So I'm going to show that on my computer real quick. So here's Lizzie Peirce's YouTube channel. You can just type in her name right here on YouTube and find it.
Yeah, so you can pretty much, it's just my name on every platform. I was lucky enough just to get my name. No one else, I think, spells their last name like mine.
Yeah.
Overall,
I
I'm
think
pretty happy
usually
with
they're
that.
like IE flipped around, but yours is switched around, which is great because,
I don't know.
as you
It
said,
just
it's like your own
complicates my
self-brand.
life.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many people have received emails like the other Lizzie Peirce spelled Pie? How many emails that poor
Oh,
person has
man.
received going to me?
I can imagine.
I'm so sorry. If you're on this live, I apologize. Okay, so yeah,
Check out.
that's my happy vibe clock.
Yeah, look at that. Check that before and after out. Rodney, let us know what you think if you're still in the chat. I think it came out great.
All right. Let's go over to, I'm actually quite excited to edit this photo.
Was this user submitted? Or was this
This was
yours?
user submitted, actually.
Oh,
It's
check it out. The Mojave.
Sean.
Yeah.
Sean from LA.
Nice. Sean, let us know if you're in the chat because Lizzie's about to start editing your photo live.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a very iconic photo. We have Mac OS Mojave. That's kind of the backdrop for it. So very recognizable. Nice. Great shot.
Stunning. And I'm envious because it is so beautiful. I want to be there right now. Yeah, it's perfectly. I don't even really feel like I need to crop or correct anything. It's already framed beautifully. This beautiful S curve of the sand.
Yeah. Rodney's asking if he can get a copy of this edit.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't see why.
Yeah, so Lizzie can email us that photo, and then we can work with you, Rodney, to get a copy of it. Why don't, Wade, if you don't mind just DMing Rodney and getting his email address, and then we can just sync up offline.
I'm just deciding what I want to do with the highlights. Might actually bring them up because it is nice and sunny. We'll bring them up a touch.
Ooh, we got Sean in the house. Sean, yes. Thank you for joining us. Sean Cross, this is his photo.
We're just showering Sean with compliments. That's what's happening.
This is a compliment-filled stream. I love it.
Yeah, this is stunning.
Yeah, great composition. Good shot. Good shot, Sean.
Good shot, Sean.
Good shot, Sean.
I think I like the way it was shot. I might actually just make it a little less pink if I can.
Awesome. So great questions, everybody. Keep them coming. Again, if you're tuning in on YouTube, go ahead and join us on Behance. That's where we're having the conversation, asking questions, answering questions, live edits, all that good stuff.
So, little fun tip for you guys if you're not sure in your image where, because sometimes, you could think that this shadow over here doesn't have any particular color associated to it when you're going in and playing in the HSL color panel. You can grab this little toggle over here and just kind of hover it over the area you want to make your adjustments to find out what color it actually is. So I can see here that it's mainly blue, which is kind of what I suspected. But in some photos, you can't quite tell.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want it. I mean, you could split tone this and do both colors, but I think I want to go a little, let's go moods and let's go clean, and we're going to desaturate the blues. And then I can see some green in here too. So I may actually just try to take out as much of that as I can. It's quite dramatic. I mean, you don't know always if you're making major adjustments like this, whether your image is going to hold up. And that's why you want to shoot raw.
Yes, bringing it full circle. I was going to ask Sean what he shot this for, because we love to geek out on these types of things, and he's way ahead of us. He already answered. He shot this with a Sony a7S II with the 70 to 200 f2.8 lens. So fellow alpha shooter.
I love it. Love the 70 to 200. If you're ever wondering what lens to get next, then I'm a huge lover of the 100 to 400.
Ooh, that's a big focal range.
It is a big focal range, but it is fantastic if you are shooting wildlife or if you love getting those super tight detail shots of like mountain tops or anything in the distance you can't quite get to. It's become our go-to over the 70 to 200. And it's ridiculous to carry around when you're traveling, but it is worth it.
What does that lens stop down to? The 100 to 400?
I feel like it's f4.
Cool.
But don't quote me on that off the top of my head, but I think it's f4.
Nice. Sounds like a really solid lens. Yeah, I can imagine it's probably used a lot for photography or maybe even like action sports with a focal range that long.
Yeah. Mainly we're reaching to it for photography.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I feel like this is one of those photos where you just make a bunch of teeny tiny adjustments to get it perfect. Also because there are only so many colors in it. Let me make this sand a little warmer. Any reds, let's make those a little more on the orange side. Any yellows, let's make them a little more. We don't want this. We don't want a pink sand dune. No, let's go to Mars. That would be cool, but not today.
Not today.
So,
this is Earth photography.
Exactly. So I kind of focus, trying to be aware of my own process. I guess I kind of focus on the blues, like the aqua and the blues is like one chunk that I'll work with first, or just individually. Then I'll kind of go into the reds, oranges, and yellows, because usually those are kind of interchangeable. And if they are in your image, they're all very close together. So if you adjust one, you can see it affect the other two. So you're always kind of trying to observe what colors are in your image and what your end result is. And yeah, so I think working with those colors in chunks helps me figure that out a little bit better.
Sweet. Great tip.
Again, to each their own. Do you guys have any questions about the HSL color panel in itself that you've wondered or haven't quite delved into before? Happy to answer those too.
Yeah, let us know if you use the HSL color panel and how you use it. I personally don't mess with it as much. And I think it's because I don't have a lot of experience with it. But it's definitely something that I just need to play around with.
That's like my most fun part.
I know a lot
when
of people
I get
use
to
it.
that panel.
It's one of those like little modules that I'll sometimes mess with. Sometimes I have a very saturated color or something's brightness is just way too much, and I'll go in there and tone down the luminance. So I don't use it as much creatively, but it's more so to like kind of get the exposure I'm looking for. But after seeing you work with it, I mean, definitely gonna try and mess around with it. I think there's so many great things you can do with it. But let us know, chat. Let us know if you use it. Is it your favorite module? How often do you use it? Yeah.
So in the same way that I like to use the graduated filter to add some light, sometimes I'll use a radial filter as well, depending on what I want that sunlight or that extra color to look like. Especially if you're doing, I don't have any examples here, but neon night photography and you have like two very distinct colors, or any night photography, sometimes using radial filters and making like a super big one like this and playing with the angle of it can really add some dimension to your photo. So I would recommend playing around with those. They can really add a very unique look to your photo.
Yeah, I agree. Just you adding that radial filter, it's already looking great. It looks like it's just a sunnier spot. And I would say it's good to try and put these things kind of naturally where the light's coming from. Obviously, if the sun is coming in from one end, you don't want to put one of those on the other end. Or you can. Again, no right or wrong way to doing things, but it just kind of looks more natural if it's coming generally from the direction of the light source. So
exactly.
That's a really cool adjustment there.
All you're ever trying to doing is like emphasize what's already there, you know?
Yeah, 100%. That's a great way to look at it. Fairy saying, I use the HSL to change the color and also adjust the saturation and the luminance or brightness. Nice.
Totally.
Now we have Nora asking a question. When do you know you finished editing a shot?
I think when you notice you've gone back to the same thing 3 or more times and you keep switching it back and forth or something like that, then maybe just hands off, come back to it even the next day and see if you like it. And sometimes I'll show it to a person I trust who knows my style. Or can offer some advice too. And normally that person for me is Chris, and we're often, letting the other one glance at our work. And we do have very different styles of photography. So if he says it's very you, usually means I'm on the right track.
Nice.
So there's a little before and after for you guys. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that came out great. Definitely more emphasized, more contrast and drama to it.
A little more drama. Yeah, actually, I noticed this right now. There's a little bit of sand here that's kind of distracting now that I'm looking at it. So I might just we might just heal our way out of that. There we go.
Heal it up.
Heal it up. There it goes. And something that you guys may not know is if you're working on a larger area and you're really avoiding going into Photoshop, if your Photoshop knowledge is limited, you can drag these around. So sometimes I find I want to put one, little healing brush section that I've already made over top of another one. It doesn't let you draw on top of them, but you can, for example, if I grab this, you can move it over top of the other one. So that's a little hack.
Awesome.
If you're trying to blend something in a bit better.
All the ways trying to avoid Photoshop.
Sometimes you don't want to have to switch between multiple programs. It is easier to stay in one as much as you can.
Admit I'm in that camp. My knowledge of Photoshop is minimal, so if I can get everything done with Lightroom, I try to, and I'll do exactly what you just did. But sometimes you just got to get into Photoshop for some of those more advanced techniques. So we have Mario saying, I use the HSL very often for photos with multiple colors, like portraits within nature. Nice. Great use.
100%.
With nature. We got a duck.
Look at this cute duck.
Was this user submitted as well?
Yes. So this is from Isabella, and Isabella's in Toronto, which makes me super happy. Another Torontonian. Yay.
Torontonian.
Torontonian.
Isabella,
I know the first time I heard that. Oh, she's here?
No, let us know. Isabella, are you here?
Oh,
we're about to edit your photo live, so give us a shout out if you're watching, because Lizzie's about to edit your photo.
Yeah, the first time someone told me when I was a kid that everyone from Toronto was a Torontonian, I was like, are you joking? That's what we're called? Okay.
Torontonian.
Cool. Torontonian. And if you guys are posting your photos on Instagram, let's do that on this photo. I will right from the beginning change the aspect ratio to 4:5 or 8:10, just so I don't make any adjustments that actually won't be visible in my final photo. So just for fun, let's do that for this one.
Yeah. Ooh, we have Isabella in the chat. Yes. Welcome.
Yay. Everyone's here.
She said she shot this with the A7 III and a Sony Zeiss 55 1.8.
Nice.
Cool.
So
got a lot of Sony
sometimes shooters. So sometimes, even if in this case, if I don't want to use a preset, but I'm just trying to figure out what direction I'm going to go in, sometimes I'll just scroll past a few presets and see what I like. Whereas I kind of like that vibe, so maybe we'll go something a little similar to that. It's just fun to take a peek. Not every preset works on every photo, and I don't particularly love all of mine. on this particular photo right now. So let's go. I do love this photo though. It's so centered. I can tell that you probably sat there and waited for this duck to end up in just the right spot.
Yeah, let us know, Isabella. Was this just by happy chance? Or did you see the duck incoming and you just waited there for him to line up perfectly, he or she? So let us know what the behind the scenes notes were for this shot. Steve goes, sweet shot. Ducks are cool. Agreed. Ducks are cool.
This is kind of
Mike is saying, looks so serene. The duck, that is.
Very much. The duck, that is. Anyone who knows, I don't know, is there anyone in the chat that is familiar with me and my fiance and our cat, Luna? I'm just curious, because if so, I have a really funny, stupid little thing to tell you.
Yeah, let us know if you know.
Yeah.
Lizzie's
Do you know me?
Cat. If not, we're gonna have to hear the story anyway, because
you'll have to hear the story. We'll find out.
Say it.
Chris and I are so silly. We have a sea-doo that we'll go out with in the city, and we see lots of ducks, and we jokingly call them water lunas because they're so cute.
Oh, because your cat's name is Luna. So
our cat's name is Luna, so we're like, oh, a water Luna.
That's cute.
It makes no sense. It's just so stupid. But yeah, we call ducks water lunas now.
Ooh, a lot of people are saying they do know your cat. Rodney says yes. Maribella says yes. Wade says, you have to tell us now.
She's such a cute little thing. She's a Scottish fold. And I never thought I would be a cat person, but here I am.
I hear that
as
a lot.
A cat person.
I hear people say I was never a cat fan until they get a cat, then they fall in love with the cat.
I think cats got a bad rap.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of cats can be pretty aloof and, you know, not super social, but not all cats. You know, I think we may have generalized the cat population a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think sometimes the cat ends up choosing you, right? Like,
it's true.
Yeah, I used to live in a house with some roommates, and one of the couples got a cat, but then the cat kept going to the room of some other roommates, and the cat just kind of picked the owners, right? It's kind of the other way around, and then
that's of course, long story funny.
Short, they gave the cat to them because the cat wouldn't even acknowledge them, and now they love the cat. So Isabella's saying,
like, pretty typical.
Yeah. So Isabella's giving us some notes on behind the scenes of this shot.
Yeah.
Says, I sat there for about an hour watching ducks and taking photos. Oh, I love it. A lot of effort put into this photo, and it's paid off.
It definitely did. And you can tell because this kind of photo doesn't just happen. Not very often, you know?
Yeah.
So let's get a good look at that duck in just a second, because I can tell I'm making all of the rest of the photo quite shadowy and trying to frame this duck as much as possible. So, but we're going to go in and make the duck a little more visible in just a second.
Cool. Kyle's saying, I know about you and Chris, but not your cat Luna. However, we have a cat named Luna.
Oh, it's a very common cat name. And I think you chose a great name for your cat, because I think it's a great name. Or I think there are even people named Luna.
Actually, I have a mattress called Luna.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like these
I got it from Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's a common one. Yeah, it's like this car camping mattress, but I think it's called like Luna Life, so that's what I think of when I hear Luna.
Luna, your mattress. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Lulu's asking, hi, can you tell us something about how to use split toning? I always end up avoiding that.
Yeah, sure. So you could go down there and take a look, actually. So if I am using split toning, I'm usually pretty subtle with it. Or I'm trying to achieve a very specific look to a photo, usually like a nice vintage looking photo, for example. So if you want to add, first of all, let's bring up the saturation pretty dramatically so you can see what's happening. So if you scroll along the slider here, you can see that you're adding any one of these colors to your highlights. So normally the ones that I am picking for my photos would be something in the warmer range here, like an orangey yellow. You can also click this box and pick any color. I still prefer the slider. Or I'm adding green to something I want to be a little moody or a little like a clean looking photo with a bit of a vintage vibe, or sometimes a little bit of turquoise, maybe blue. That's usually it. For this photo, if we want to add some split toning just for fun, I would probably pick something along those lines, and then you back up the saturation. So this is with no color in the highlights added, and then this would be 100%, and then we can just back it up somewhere around here maybe. Sometimes I'm adding as little as, you know, only setting my saturation at 3. I want to say 3%. So maybe 3% saturation in the highlights. But sometimes I think for this photo, we could have it sit maybe at 14. Shadows, same thing, but for the shadows. So if we want to just bring up the saturation really dramatically, it would be adding that color to the shadows. But if you back it up, it's not quite as dramatic. Normally, I like, if it's a vintage photo, I'll add like some red. You can see that's giving it a little bit of an antique look. Or
Yeah, definitely does.
Yeah. On most photos, if I'm adding something to the shadows, it's usually like a dark, deep blue. So for fun, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Look at this. Chat inspired edits. I love it.
And the balance here in the middle is pretty much, the best way I would explain it is it's kind of like the degree of, like, if you think about your tone curve, it's like the degree of where it's going to add that color to the shadows or your highlights. So if it's right in the middle, it's adding highlights to, say, like the top, I would explain it as the top half of your image, let's say, and then the shadows would be like the bottom half, so like your mid-tones down. And then the more you crank it to one side or the other side, you're adding your shadow. Let's just put this back at 100. So that's with the balance at minus 100. And then you can see it kind of backs up that blue all the way into the darkest tones of your image. And then this would be almost your entire, like almost pretty much your highlights are also blue at this point. They are blue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it for you.
Yeah.
But I would play around with it.
That was a great rundown. And even what Lizzie did there is, if you're not familiar with some of these sliders or might think they're a little bit daunting, just play around with them and take them to the extreme. That's a great way to see how these sliders are affecting what in the photograph. Just get extreme with them, right? Drag it all the way to the right, drag it all the way to the left, and see what it's actually doing as an effect. Yeah. You can start dialing it down and kind of finding that little touch percentage that you like. So cool. Thanks for that rundown. That was very helpful.
No problem, guys. That is why I'm here. So
that is why she's here.
That is why I am here. So let's brighten this duck, this water Luna. Oh, Chris is gonna laugh when I tell him that I said that on the live today.
Water Luna.
Water Luna.
We do have a question from the chat from Rudolph. Is there a way to save a custom aspect, such as for Instagram stories? And you may have touched up on this yesterday. I don't really remember.
A custom aspect ratio for Instagram stories?
So I think, for example, Instagram stories being a custom aspect ratio, how would you get like a custom aspect ratio?
You can select custom right there.
Boom, there it is.
And build your own.
Easy peasy.
That looked a bit crazy for a second.
Yeah, now we have an alien water Luna.
We have an alien water Luna. So I'm just basically trying to select just the duck here. Just the water Luna. And I'm going to, I just had, I was pressing O to be able to see where my localized adjustment was happening. And super cool update that Lightroom, I'm not going to use this right now, but I'll point it out, that came out recently, is this little hue slider for the localized adjustment brush. And we've been waiting for that for a long time. Was very excited about that.
So what does it do for those that don't know what's going on with that?
It will, I'll show you. It'll change the hue of whatever you have selected.
Yeah, so she painted on there, and now that slider is affecting just that local adjustment, which is great. We can make this any type of color that we want. We have all sorts of creative choices with this little water cat.
But you know what? We don't want a green duck today. That's not our vibe for today. So I'm just trying to, in the most natural way possible, make this duck a little more visible. So sometimes, and I think that when I first started, my initial process in editing this photo would be to bring up overall the shadows on the image to be able to see the duck better. But that's not the way this image looks true to your eye, and you can tell that how much the shadows have been brought up, and you can tell it looks unnatural. So I find the most natural way to make a subject like this visible is to edit the rest of the photo the way you normally would that suits that image, which is what we did, and kept everything pretty shadowy. You can see I did bring up the shadows, but not super intensely. And, oh, sorry, that's in my adjustment brush. So, oh, actually I didn't bring up the shadows at all. So there you go. And down here, I actually brought them down because I felt that looked more natural to the whole image because it created this frame here. But now you can see the duck so much more clearly.
Yeah, it stands out.
Exactly. And actually, I was trying to make sure our little duck is in the center here. And there we go.
We have RKAC Harrison saying, "Hey Lizzie, how goes the edits?"
It goes quite well, actually, I would say.
Yeah.
These are fun.
It's
fun editing other people's photos.
Yeah, these are user submitted. So this one, along with the last two, have been user submitted photos that we've been editing. Check that out. It's a totally different photograph, and you really get that eye drawn to the. I'm just gonna call ducks water lunas now. That's just what they are.
Sorry. Well, you could, if you wanted to go one step further, I would recommend erasing this other little duck here so it's not as distracting. You could probably do that in Lightroom, and I don't think anyone would notice, or you just bring it into Photoshop quickly. We won't do that right now just for the sake of time so we can get some other fun stuff, but that's probably what I would recommend next, just so there's nothing distracting in here.
Yeah. We have some people asking about layer mode in Lightroom. Have you finagled with that yet? Do you know how to use it?
I haven't too much yet. Yeah. That's a newer feature, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. I haven't played around with much of it, so I can't advise too much. Sorry. But yeah, there's all sorts of features we can do.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Just a time check. We have about, what do we got? Like 23 minutes before we'll jump into the portfolio review segment of this live stream. So maybe we can edit a couple more photos and then we'll just take us right into portfolio reviews.
Let's do, one thing I really want to make sure I have time to show you guys is some basic skin retouching, because when I started that seemed really intimidating. It can also be not so exciting to watch someone do a full image. So I will just walk you through kind of the process, and I'll show you how to do it.
Let's do it.
So let's take my beautiful friend Joelle here. And
she was with us yesterday too, right? Is this the same model?
Joelle, it's the same model. Joelle joined us yesterday as well. And really quickly, so I actually made some presets for this shoot specifically. Joelle Moroccan, because it was the Moroccan room. So you can see I made 3, if you guys are wondering, difference between presets. Sometimes I make 3 little variations as I'm going along. So you can tell this one is if it was more in the shadows of the room. And then I think let's just go with that for now.
Cool.
I don't want to spend too much time in Lightroom. Just going to bring down the saturation a little bit. And maybe we'll just do some quick eye adjustments, and these are things that I would typically do in Lightroom first, just because Lightroom is a little more intuitive than Photoshop. Some would disagree with me because they just love the extent of what you can do in Photoshop versus Lightroom. But you know what? I'm happy with what I can do in Lightroom.
Yeah.
It makes me
Like we
happy.
said many times, to each their own. You know, one app works better for some people, vice versa for the other. It's just whatever works for you best. I'm in the same Lightroom camp, especially for photography. In the meantime, we have Gus Martin in the chat. What's up, Gus? Welcome, my good friend and colleague. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Gus.
Hey, Gus. Cool. So we're starting to make the eyes pop a little bit. Are we adding some brush strokes to it?
Exactly. So we did just enough that her eyes look nice and glossy, but she doesn't look like a vampire. And that's pretty much where we want to be.
It's fair.
So let's
Don't turn into a vampire. Good rule of thumb.
Don't turn your model into a vampire. So let's go into Photoshop. So if you just right click on your image, head over to Edit In, then Edit in Adobe Photoshop. Now,
That easy.
hang with me as we open up Photoshop. While that's happening, I can show you guys a recent addition into my skin retouching or any retouching life. So I picked up a Wacom tablet.
Ooh, check that out.
Here it
I'll
is.
do the full screen shot so people can see it nice and big.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
There you go. And yeah, it's been fantastic because it just makes, and you'll see why it makes some of these adjustments just feel a little more natural. It does kind of feel like coloring. And I did use a mouse for a long time. So don't feel like, oh, I can't afford to buy this, or I absolutely need this to do retouching. You definitely do not. This was a personal preference, but overall, it's not very expensive. This is, I think, the larger version, but there is a smaller one too. So yeah, if it is something that you think sounds fun after you've been doing some retouching, you want to invest in it, it's a pretty accessible price point.
Yeah, I see those a lot in the streams, especially for Photoshop compositors. They're usually riding around with a Wacom tablet.
Yeah.
We have a quick technical question. Robert's asking, what bit depth do you work when you edit?
That's a great question. I don't know if that's something I pay attention to very much, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I think default Photoshop might be 16. I think we see that up there where it's in the top left, layer 0, RGB 16. So I think it's 16-bit.
All right, so we're gonna make 2 new layers. This first one I'm gonna call tone. And, oh, sorry, we're actually just gonna duplicate this layer. So that should be, on this laptop, it's Control J. And we're going to rename this one tone. We'll rename the third one texture. So with tone, we're going to add a filter. So we'll go over to blur, over to Gaussian blur, and let's move over so we can find Joelle's face. I think we're at her neck. There's her skin. Perfect.
There it is.
So if you're not sure which, level you want to set this to right away, usually 3.5 or 3.6 is a good place to start. 0 is no blur, and anything over that is quite a substantial amount of blur. So I just want to, because this is where we're going to be evening out her skin tone. So obviously this wouldn't be enough of an effect for me. I want to add a little bit of a softening effect to her skin. So maybe somewhere around there is good for this image for me. Now we're going to go over to our texture layer. We're going to head over to image and apply image. And we're going to select our tone layer. Channel, we're going to leave it RGB. Blending, we are going to head over to subtract. And these are kind of your magic numbers you want to work with 2 and your scale at 2 and your offset at 128. So always make sure that those are set that way. So as you can see, this layer, you're not seeing a whole lot right now, but if I zoom you in, you can see that it's just emphasized all the texture in the image. And this is basically our frequency separation layer. So if you've heard anything about frequency separation, that's basically what we're doing here. So then you're going to change your blend mode for that layer to linear light. All right, now we can actually begin. So we'll select our tone layer. And really this is where you're going to even out her skin tone, any shadows, or I mean, most of the work is done within this layer. So even if it's, I mean, Joelle already has beautiful skin. She's probably horrified that I'm zooming in this much on her face right now. But, you know, it has to be done. So even in like an area where you might find like some pores or a little bit of texture that you want to get rid of, and texture in terms of like spots and any, you know, pimples, things like that, this does help get rid of a lot of that already. But anything else like wrinkles and fine lines, then we would do in the texture layer we talked about before. So I also have, I'm going to sample from the current layer. And I just check off use legacy as well. So I try to make sure that my brush is really small and only as big as I need it to be. I don't really want a very big brush for this because it just looks, you can just start to kind of tell when you're making those changes and those adjustments. And you want your photos to look really natural at the end of the day. So what you're gonna do is select I already have the healing brush selected. But if you don't, I believe you can just hit J and it should pop up. So first thing you have to do is select an area that you want to use to kind of paint over whatever section you're working with. So let's start with like the under eye here. So everyone's got a little bit of darkness under their eyes. It's just the way humans are. And I don't want to get rid of it completely, but there are some things I can do to just kind of brighten up this little bluish area here. So I'm going to sample. Sorry, do you have a question?
Sorry, nope. I am covering the video layers and now we are not. Hold on, let me take that live.
No worries. So
Good.
I'm just.
Okay. Layers are uncovered
Hello.
now. Sorry about that, folks.
So you can see her inner corner is probably the brightest area. So I'm going to hit Alt and just sample little section right there. And with your mouse, you would just click, but with my brush, I can just touch my little tablet here. And then you really just brush in little circular sweeping motions. And I like to continuously sample from something close by. And like, this isn't so hard, guys. Now it's just like coloring. So you want to go take that lighter area that's close by and just brush over that darker area. So kind of in like a little J semicircle motion. And this is my favorite thing to do because you can just like sit here with music on and it can become really passive.
Yeah, it's very therapeutic too.
It's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
So,
I love working with music too, especially when I'm working with apps that don't require audio, like After Effects or Lightroom.
Yep.
Just put those tunes in and get to work. Makes it very, very
For
enjoyable.
sure. So I won't do as much effort here as maybe I normally would, but I'm going to toggle this bottom layer on and off so you can see what that's already done. So I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but you can already see it starting. This is our base layer, so with no adjustments. And then these are the adjustments added. You can see we're starting to brighten that under eye area. Same thing. So let's just move to a different area of the face so I can show you kind of what that does. So say we're going to work on sort of her cheek area here. We will get rid of this hair as well, and I'll show you how to do that. So she's got a little bit of light on her cheek here. And ladies, if you know anything about contouring, we want a nice little triangle of light. You just follow my arrow right here to emphasize the cheekbones and get that whole chiseled cheekbone look going on. So we're gonna sample this lighter area of her cheek, again, by pressing Alt and clicking. And then we're just going to paint some more light into this area. And we're also going to be inevitably softening some of this texture as well. But there is, if you're noticing there's still some texture visible, then again, we can go into that a little bit more in the texture layer later on.
Cool.
But the way this works.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let you finish. Let's say we do have some technical questions that might side rail us a little bit, but I do want to ask them before they get lost. Number one is, which Wacom do you use? Again, which one was that?
I believe this is the Pro version. So there are three. There's the smaller one. There are three levels. I don't remember the exact name, but I know there are three. So there's the smaller version of this one. And I know this is the Pro. So it's the smaller Pro, but it's not the smallest Wacom tablet. And the Pro version is a little more expensive, and I don't think that would be really necessary for you unless you want to do animation with it or like any kind of actual like design work. So if you're just doing retouching, I think you would be fine with this or even the smallest one.
Cool. And then the other one is about what type of system you're using. So curious about your thoughts on using a PC and why you prefer them. So we did establish this is the HP Envy 15, which is an awesome laptop to do creative work with. So what are your thoughts on it, Lizzie, and why do you prefer to use this?
So this laptop was specifically designed for creators. So it's got a really strong GPU as well as a great processor as well. I believe it has an 8-core, the Intel i7 as well. And so that's what you want. You want something that can handle multiple applications. You want something that's going to be fast rendering times. You want to be able to watch your playback in real time. And that's essentially what this computer offers, and at a really accessible price point, in my opinion. The other thing is my desktop is a PC, so I can live within the same ecosystem, having this laptop at the office as well as my PC. This laptop has HP Quick Drop, which is essentially the same thing. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Which is essentially the same thing as AirDrop. And we love, and I'm going to use this word again, a frictionless process.
Frictionless. Yeah, and I think you touched up on the video card too. Video card's big when you're using video cards. I think this one's rocking the RTX 2060, which is a video card and a laptop, so that's big. That really helps with all these tasks that we're giving it. And then yeah, the HP Quick Drop one is a big one. AirDrop just makes things so seamless, and this is kind of the answer to that too, which works really, really well as well. So good stuff packing behind this laptop.
100%. So I would normally keep going on this image, but for now, I'm going to just toggle. We'll zoom out for a second so you get a better view of her face. So I'll show you what that has done so far. So I'm going to hit Alt and just click on the bottom layer. So look under her eyes for just a second. So this is with none of the adjustments done, and that's with some of the adjustments under her eye. You can see it's definitely brighter. And you can see on her cheek here where I did some of that softening as well. Take a look at that. So this is with no retouching. This is with the retouching. So that's already made it's subtle differences. But again, if this was going to be print, or if this is a headshot for a client and you need a really high resolution, this is something you would want to invest your time into. So let's move over to the texture layer so I can show you guys what that does as well. So this works really well on any fine lines and wrinkles, creases, things like that. So Joelle is very young, so she really doesn't have anything too major, but just to show you what this can do. So there's a little bit of a line right here under her eye. So what I'm going to do is hit Alt and just sample something close by again and just draw over that line. And again, you really don't want your brush much bigger than whatever it is you are editing. So I would say it's actually probably a bit too big. Because the bigger the brush, the more you're gonna see those adjustments, right? So you can see that's kind of getting rid of that line there. We move over to her other eye, sample something close by, and you can just soften that under eye crease. I mean, I wouldn't normally do this for her because I don't really think that's necessary, but if, for example, I have some stronger lines on my forehead, so take this one right here, for example, sample something close by and just draw over that, and it just softens some of those lines.
Awesome.
Same thing for some of this texture. We want to make this brush a little bit bigger for this guy.
While you're doing that, we have some comments/questions in the chat. One's technical based. How much RAM would you say you need? It depends. This one's rocking 16 gigs of RAM, which I think is more than enough for photo editing or Photoshop and all that good stuff. I think if you start working with some of the video apps like After Effects, motion graphics, you usually want a little bit more just so it can play ball with everything that you ask for it.
Yeah, exactly. My desktop, for example, has 32. This computer has 16. I would say if you're doing a lot of video and photo editing, which I assume you guys are, I would say at least get 16.
Yeah, at least 16 for sure.
At least 16. If you can get 32, fantastic. If you can get 64, whoo.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You're golden.
You're golden.
We have a really cool comment from Mark. He's saying, going back to the clock tower, thanks for the tip on how to do individual autotone adjustments. Love learning new things after 10 plus years of use. I love it. That's why we do these live streams. There's always something to learn. Yeah.
So,
doesn't matter which skill level you are, pros, amateurs, there's always something to learn for everybody. So right on.
Perfect. 100%. We only have, I think, about 4 minutes left before we get into the portfolio review, but that's just enough time to show you guys what I want to show you. So I made a new layer here just because if you make any mistakes, you can totally go back and fix it. Then it's no big deal. So I labeled it hair. Label it whatever you want.
Very fading.
And I'm going to change the sample to all layers. And just because I found that's what produces the best results. And I'm going to click Alt, sample an area close by. And again, my brush size is super small just to go over this hair. And all I'm going to do, and you can do this in multiple strokes if you want. Some people say they get better results by doing it in one go. I haven't really noticed much of a difference. I don't love that one. Sometimes you can just undo it and try again if you don't really like the results you got. But yeah, totally, that hair is literally gone. And you can see it crosses her eye even. So we could sample something close to her eye. And because there's so many different tones in her eye, I might do this in a few different pieces. Sample again, draw a little bit, sample again, draw a little bit.
Magic.
Yeah, it just, poof, gone. Poof.
We have an Adobe evangelist who likes to coin stuff like this as Adobe Cadabra.
Adobe Cadabra. And like, even if this little vein in her eye bothers you, you can get rid of it. There it goes. Goodbye, little eye vein. You know? So I love that. It's really not as intimidating as you'd think. And I don't normally do much more than that to retouch my photos just because I want them to look super natural. I don't want them to look super edited. And she's got like a little bit of mascara flaking, but it's just great to have the option, like for things like this, like for her, we didn't have a makeup artist on set that day, but it's no big deal. I can just spend a little more time, you know, touching up some of this stuff and it doesn't take me very long.
Yep. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Wade called out the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, which is something I want to bring attention to. So right before us, we had Paul Tranny, awesome Adobe evangelist, guru in Photoshop. He's doing a daily creative challenge. And for those of you who don't know what the Photoshop challenge is, it's 2 weeks, so 10 challenges worth of doing Photoshop challenges to ramp you up in learning how to use the program. So they're great. We do them every single week. If you did want to join, you can join our Discord server, which is right there. So go ahead and type that link into your address, and it'll take you into the server where we have an amazing community that's full of Photoshop compositors. There's where we interact during these challenges, and it's just an amazing resource to get your hands dirty with Photoshop.
Cool. Get your hands dirty with Photoshop.
Yeah. Cool. So we're right pretty much on the dot for some portfolio reviews. So
all right,
let me switch to this shot. All right. And why don't we go ahead and pull up the portfolio review that we're going to be looking at today. So
I've got
just
it.
For context for everybody, we take portfolio reviews from the Discord server, and then we'll feature them on here. So again, if you join that server, then you have a chance to submit your portfolio reviews, and it could be featured on the stream. So right now we're going to go ahead and look at one. I'm going to switch back to Lizzie's screen. There we go. Let's what's the name again? Let's go up. Anas Mahmood, I believe I'm saying that. So congratulations. We're going to go ahead and look at your portfolio.
From Bangladesh.
From Bangladesh, all the way from Bangladesh. And he's a
wow.
student. So let's look at some of the projects, and let's read this about, or let's have a look at this about me and just kind of get an idea of what's going on here.
I'm a fresh graduate.
I'll let you take it.
Are you going to
away,
read
Lizzie.
it, or should I? Okay.
You should do it.
I'm a fresh graduate from Islamic University of Technology, and I've completed my, I think that's my bachelor in sociology or bachelor BS.
I nod my head like I agree, because I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure. In electrical and electronic engineering with CGPA 3.66 out of 4. Yeah, that's very impressive. That's a great GPA. In November 2019. During I think that's exactly what my GPA was
Whoa,
university.
crazy.
During my study life, I have worked as a trainee at 3 different institutions. I worked as a trainee at, I'm going to butcher this. This is quite long. Gorashal Power Plant, Bangladesh Atomic Energy Commission, and BTCL in 2018, and learned different things about power plant, nuclear reaction, and telecommunication. After graduating from IUT, I am eagerly waiting for a new job. With the knowledge and experience gained from my student life, I am looking for more exciting challenges to work with. As I started working with photography and video making, editing while I was at my university, still trying to improve myself. I always try to do something with creativity along with the needs of to always try to give my best. I love that.
Yay, we're at this part again. You cut out for a little bit, but we're seeing the whole about me, so that's good. So off the bat, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is a great about me, Anas. I would try and shorten it if we can. So keep in mind, this is a portfolio, and people just really want a quick glimpse, kind of like we say an elevator pitch of what this portfolio is about. So I would maybe cut down this about me to maybe 2 or 3 sentences. And looks like we lost your screen share.
I'll give it to you guys again.
Okay, cool. We have you nice and big though, so everybody can get a good glimpse of your studio. There we go. Cool, so it's back.
All right.
Cool. Can you hear me, Lizzie?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Yeah, so just to touch up on that again, just kind of make a 2 or 3 sentence on what it is that you want to show in this portfolio. And there's a lot of background here, but I would say just make those 2 or 3 sentences about what your portfolio is, right? So we can clearly see this is a photography portfolio. So I would just say in your about me that this is about photography, give a little backdrop on what you do with photography. And obviously you're still looking for work, so maybe let people know that you're open for photography work, but we do want to kind of trim that about me a little bit. So that's my 2 cents on the about me. And why don't we look at some portfolios or some of the projects and have a look at them more in depth.
All right. So this was one of his first photos, actually. And what interesting weather you had that day, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a unique photo. If I had to give any feedback I would probably suggest that it would be interesting to see what the composition would have been maybe from inside the car window and use that to frame the weather from out the window of the car. So you don't have as much kind of empty space over on this side of the frame. But I do think the color is really interesting. The moodiness of the clouds, I can tell you probably spent a little bit of time there really darkening them up, which I love. And maybe I would have asked, I think that's someone's hair sticking out the window, or maybe it's a dog. I don't know. We could maybe get them to tuck their head in for a second just to perfect the photo. But otherwise, you definitely recognize that this was the makings of an interesting, moody photo. So great job.
Cool. Sweet.
All right.
Let's have a look at a couple more projects.
For sure. I'm really interested in this photo over here because I was staring at it trying to think, is this a mirrored image? And it looks like it is, but these two birds on either side are slightly different. And this one's right in the center. Did you add those? Were they in the photo already?
This is a great question. And here's the thing. I don't know if it's mirrored or if it was natural. Yeah. Because of the subtle little changes that you did, which is actually an overall compliment to this photo. So I think this is a great composition. I'm not sure if Anas is here. If you are, let us know if this was photoshopped or if it was natural. I'd say you hit the composite of the year if this was an actual natural photo because the symmetry is on point. Yeah. So I think it probably is mirrored. But regardless, great photo.
It's super artistic, which is awesome. If you had this framed, it would be, a piece of art because of the symmetry. So I think it was definitely, maybe someone just would have taken, I don't know what the photo originally was, but maybe someone would have discarded that photo and you thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I mirrored it and added in these birds and centered it and just made it like a really unique piece of art, even with the cloud in the background. I really like it. If I had if I had to say anything, I would, and I'm looking really close. Sorry if you guys are losing my head. I can see some wires in the background. Maybe like these two birds in the distance, just some of the little distracting elements I might remove. But otherwise I would maybe, because it's mirrored, I would say, I don't know if there's anything you can do about the perspective of the image at the top where it looks like it's kind of bending and everything else in the middle is very level. So I don't know if there's anything you could have possibly done there to avoid that. But I think it's really unique. And that's what I love is you just kind of did your own thing. You're like, I thought this would look cool. And it does.
I agree. And Maribel actually pointed out something really cool. It looks like the cloud in the background is actually a bird as well. Kind of like that middle bird. It kind of has the same body of it, which is even cooler. So, I mean, looking at it again, like this is definitely mirrored 100%. But the way that you did it to match the elements in here, I think is very, very cool. I mean, this is a very unique and creative photograph. So kudos, my friend. The more I stare at it, the more you kind of find things, right? You can keep staring at this and find all sorts of things.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah. Awesome. Good job. Good job on that photo.
Sweet. Okay, we got a classic waterfall shot.
Let's check it out.
Which is always a good time.
I think if we click on it, it might be able to get a little bigger. Let's see.
Oh, there you go.
There it is. Cool.
So overall, definitely the makings of a great photo here. Beautiful day. I love a good waterfall shot. I can see you tried to place yourself in a perspective where you could see that top waterfall, which is exactly what you should be doing. I don't know what the rest of this waterfall looks like, but these are always tough to shoot to get the perspective right. And when you're shooting water, highlights are always tricky. So I'm not sure if you were using a polarizing filter, but that's something I would suggest as well. That'll also help you with the sky and getting some of that detail back in the clouds. I'm not sure if this was shot raw or not, or whether it was JPEG. probably JPEG. So if you were shooting RAW, I would say that'll help you get a little more detail back in those clouds. If Yeah, I mean, maybe shooting with a little bit of a wider lens so you can get more of the trees. And I like shooting waterfalls with a wide lens just because it really, like, all of that surrounding nature and foliage, I guess, will really bring your eye into the center of the frame, which is the waterfall. Yeah, overall though, I think it's great. It's very peaceful. You can tell where this was taken. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree on all those points. The only thing that I'm going to call out is at the bottom left, it looks like maybe it's a piece of trash or some rope. It looks like
I
there's
noticed that too.
blue thing there. I think that's a very easy fix that we can do in Lightroom. So that clone heal brush, if you just tap on that, it'll get away. Again, we want to draw the attention to the subject of these photos, and I think getting rid of little imperfections like that look like they otherwise wouldn't have been there if someone didn't put it there, it's just a great way to kind of avoid distraction on photos like these. But
exactly,
yeah, I think it's definitely the workings of a great photograph. I agree, if this wasn't shot raw, then maybe you could have saved a little bit of those clouds to bring some detail in them. And I think pretty much nailed all the good talking points. All right, let's have a look at maybe one or two more, and then we can do a little bit more edits and then wrap up.
Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, why don't we look at the one right there with the lightning that you have your cursor over? Let's look at that.
Crazy. Cool. Is that a storm off there in the distance? That's nuts.
Yeah.
Is that real?
Again, I don't know if this is real or fake. What is it?
And Anas is having a great time with these edits. He's just laughing. Yeah. It's like, I fooled them all.
I don't know if this is real or fake, which I think, again, is a compliment to the picture of itself. If it is a natural photograph, then you, my friend, are just nailing it with the timing on your photos, because that's a great shot.
I think he added it. I'm looking at it. I think he added it.
Your screen's probably a little crisper than mine because I'm looking through a screen share.
But cool idea nonetheless. Mm-hmm. Because you were able to take a photo that otherwise maybe you would have done something with it, maybe not. And you're like, I'm going to remake this into whatever I want. And a lot of people do that with like sky replacement. When the sky's blown out, they can add a sunset or whatever, and in this case, Anas was like, I'm gonna add a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
And I think that's super creative.
It does add an element to this photo, because it looks like this was taken off the back of the boat. We're a little bit of distracting elements on the right with tent. So, visually, it may not be the most engaging photo off the bat, but adding elements like the rain and the lightning strike, I think that really does kind of give this photo a little bit more of a dramatic effect. So if you did add those to kind of spice this photo up, then kudos. It's doing what it's meant to be doing for sure.
The only two things I would suggest would be, one, I can tell by the style of photography that you're doing, and I'm not sure whether this was taken with your phone or with a camera. I feel like you would really benefit from a wider lens. And in all of your compositions, I think I feel like I'm waiting for that. Like, I almost want to see the tail end of this, I don't know what that's called, the waves that are coming off of the motorboat, this like whitewash here. And I think it'll just help draw your eye into the center of the image. Like, I'm almost wondering what's a little bit to the left of that, what's a little bit to the right. It's almost like cropped in too much. So if this is on your phone, you can look into some phone wide lenses that are pretty inexpensive overall, and maybe that's something you could invest in. The other thing I would suggest is these look a little over sharpened, and so maybe I would consider taking that down a little bit. Sometimes we get a little crazy with sharpening and contrast and clarity, and we just want it to pop so much, but we forget that there is a certain level that doesn't look natural anymore, and isn't adding to the photo. Instead, it's distracting from what awesome image you took. So those would be my two little pieces of feedback.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. I agree with the wider lens angle too. I think you have an eye for composition and landscape. And I think you could benefit from maybe playing around with a wider lens. And when you shoot with wide lenses, like if you're on a full frame, like a 16 millimeter or 14 millimeter, you really want to look at that foreground too, right? Because the attention is really going to be drawn into those foreground elements. So make sure you do kind of find compelling foregrounds, because it'll be a big part of your images as well.
Yes.
So, cool.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, why don't we hop back into Lightroom? So let's look at Anas's profile one more time before we head off.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries. So go ahead and give Anas a follow. Give him kudos. Thanks for submitting, my friend. You have some really, really good stuff on here. Cool. So we have about 15 minutes left. Actually, more like 10. So maybe we can knock out 1 or 2 more edits, and then that'll be a wrap with Lizzie Peirce.
Heck yeah. So this one might be fun for us to edit together. This is a self-portrait I took in my bedroom in the heat of COVID. And I was like, what the heck can I shoot? And I thought, myself, why not, you know?
Why not?
So you could, I have actually posted this photo since, but so similar to that, I shot this horizontal, but I ended up cropping it vertical just because that's what I ended up posting. So if it's easier for you on your tripod to just shoot horizontal and crop it later, if you have enough, if you have the luxury of enough megapixels to do so, go for it. Also, this is going to go up on Instagram, so no one really has the ability to look too closely at it. Something else you can tell is I'm shooting down a little bit at myself, so you could, I don't really mind it too much, but if you want, we could go down to the transform panel. And these are fun. If you're a little intimidated about working with these, sometimes I'll play with the aspect when it's a super wide lens because I want myself to look long and lean. That's not what we're doing right now. Your X offset is going to move your image side to side. But what we're doing right now is we're going to be working with the vertical and the horizontal. So it gives you these little grid lines, which is really helpful. Because I was shooting down at myself, we're basically trying to correct my composition. It's always a sign of a more professional photo when you've got some clean, straight lines in the corner of your image. So let's see if we can correct that without this looking super wonky. Maybe if it's just a little bit. If it's something that bothers you, you could correct this or not. Totally up to you. We can do it a little bit. It's always hard when you're taking photos of yourself. You get the perspective right. So that is a little bit better. At least this one over here is lined up. So it does distort your image a little bit, but I don't think we're too far off.
Yeah. And did you use natural lighting for this, or?
Yeah, so
for it?
I used natural lighting for this. Our bedroom actually has 2 walls that are just like completely windows. So awesome. We have, you can see in the corner over here, some of the lights actually peeking out from our blackout curtain in there, but it was such a bright day that the room was still lit even with those shut. So we got a nice, really soft, even light throughout the room.
This is with blackout curtains on the windows and you get much light? Nice.
Yeah.
You get a lot of light.
It's a lot of, well, we're up pretty high. We're on the 26th floor.
There you go.
So we're quite high. As you can also tell, it's a little bit green in our bedroom because in a lot of condos, they put a green film on the windows, which we didn't really realize till we moved in. We're like, why does everything look green? We shoot in here because of the green film on the windows. So we can correct our white balance a little bit. But now, as you can see, it looks quite white, but it also looks a little bit pink. So I might just bring a touch more. It is a warm white. Our walls are naturally a warm white, not a crisp white. So I'm not mad at them looking a little bit more on the cream side than stark white. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So already our
Check that
image
before and after app. Yeah, the
has
thing
some
that stood out
improvements.
first was kind of that green hue, and I was gonna ask if that was white balance, but I had no idea that it could
Hmm.
even be the windows with a green film.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's looking good.
it's a little frustrating. Sometimes people like it and they're going, "How did you get that lovely green effect?" Or what's your color correction process for shooting video? And I'm like, it's just the windows. It's
It's
just
the
what it looks
windows,
like. Yeah, so I actually ended up making a preset for this room called the
the
bedroom
bedroom
preset.
preset.
But for fun, we're going to, and I mean, that even doesn't look perfect right away, but that's it in its glory. And then I would make some tweaks from that point on. But let's do this from start to finish because that is the trend today.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, let's make sure our exposure. Actually, let's go down to, we'll do tone curve first again. So we'll make a little bit of an S curve. The lighting's quite flat in there and flat but even, which we like for portraits. So we'll just bring a little bit of depth back into that photo. Bring out the blacks a little bit. My usual routine. You guys have seen me do this so many times now. You should know it like the back of your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes, yeah, I these are kind of my go-tos, but my tried and true. But at the same time, I mean, if you like, sometimes I'll go in a bit further and do a little bit more depending on the photo. But, if it works.
If it works, no need to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So we have about 5 minutes left. If any of you guys have any last questions for Lizzie, now's the time to ask them, because once this ends, that's all the days we have with Lizzie Peirce. So go ahead and ask those last minute questions if you have any, and we'll do a little bit more editing before we got to sign off.
I'm trying to go as fast as possible for you guys because I don't want to.
You're like on a
I don't want to leave you hanging.
Don't give us a cliffhanger, Lizzie.
And be like, and this is what it would have looked like if it was almost done.
So now you're messing with your favorite panel, the HSL.
HSL.
This is affecting, looks like it's affecting your skin tone.
Yeah, this orange, I'm in the luminance area right now. Orange really affects my skin tone, as you can
really
see.
Came out of a tanning salon there. Now you're a ghost.
Yeah, a little too long in there, yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh. And I mean, for most people, if they have a darker skin tone than mine, then you could bring this up and it would add some very nice, smooth, glowy skin. But for me, sometimes I have to bring it down.
We had a question.
Too reflective.
Yeah, we had a question yesterday with someone asking about skin tones, and I think they definitely could have benefited from this panel right here. So if they target the skin tones, I think they were saying that it looked a little too yellow, so just drag that down, yellow or orange.
Yeah. Yep. I would say HSL is where you want to be.
Yep. We have a question from Rodney. He's asking, what are your next photo projects?
That's a great question. Photo projects specifically. We will be working with Corona soon, and
the beer?
Potentially, yes. So we're going to be taking
shoot.
some photos for them, some video for them. So it may mean going on a bit of a COVID-friendly trip.
Fun.
So that'll be fun. Yeah, that's near the end of the month. So we're very excited about that. Just, the ability to go anywhere and be outside right now is just fantastic.
I know. I think we're all waiting for the opportunity to do that again and all the things that we used to do.
Very much so. Very, very much so. So sometimes maybe I'll do some split toning for this for you guys. Maybe we'll go for a bit of a vintage look.
It's looking good.
Coming together.
Did you add those props in the back, or were they kind of there as is and you just shot it?
This is like a cleaned up version of what my vanity normally looks like. Normally there's stuff probably tossed all over the top of it, but the hat is normally there. That salt lamp is there. My purse and like all of that is normally there. I feel like we ladies know we need a spot for all of our stuff to go to get ready in the morning, you know?
Yeah. I like that guitar symmetry mirror effect going on. It's kind of like that composite we're looking at. Nice little happy accident.
So you can, they're just both placed on the opposite side of the wall. So mine's down here and Chris's is up there.
Oh, there's two. I just thought it was one, but split because of that, right? Oh, how cool.
Well, that one, the split one is one guitar, but this other line right here is the other neck of another guitar.
Got it. All right. Well, Lizzie, we're at time, so unfortunately we do got to wrap up.
Okay. I'm cutting myself off. Here's your before and after.
Here's the before and after. Nice. Came out great.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I already see some love from the chat. A lot of people are thanking us for these last 2 days. It's been an
Thanks for joining,
pleasure.
guys.
It's been a lot of fun. Lizzie, thanks so much for showing us your editing techniques, giving us a glimpse into how you do your workflows. It's been a lot of fun the last 2 days. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So don't go anywhere again. Stick around. We have a lot more coming up. We have the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hawkrattle, so stick around for that. And in terms of us two, we got to sign off, but we will be out there in the social sphere. So thanks again, everybody, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.